It's finally here. I have been working on this project for so many months. It's been something that's been seated within my mind and my visions and my passion for so long now. And it's been such a team effort to bring it together and to truly unearth. It's like birthing a baby. But I cannot wait to finally announce that Euphoric the Club is here. Euphoric the Club is the space for women who don't drink, successful women who don't drink, and the women who want to be them. This is your ultimate alcohol-free space to truly lose the desire to drink and to feel so normalized around this incredibly vibrant, successful community of women who have the same mission and the same lifestyle. And for those of us who've already solidly become alcohol free, this is a place where I'm gonna be optimizing my health. We're gonna have incredible monthly challenges that we're gonna do together, everywhere from sleep to lymphatic drainage to really getting into our purpose, into our fire. Like, it's so juicy. And from optimizing our health into getting on fire into our purpose, getting so in passion with other successful women, and truly feeling like alcohol is so meaningless at the end of the day, because we have that fulfillment and that sense of meaning from within. We are going to move our bodies. There's going to be bar classes and Pilates classes. Like, this is going to be such a thriving space to be a part of. And you have an opportunity to join as a pioneer member, as one of the first founding members of the club, at an incredible value of only $59 a month. I don't know when it's going to go up. It's probably going to go much, much higher. And we got some incredible bonuses for you to join in the month of May as well. So be sure to check those out when you go into the show notes. And I just can't wait to welcome you in. It's going to be such an accessible space, but really a space of power, of optimizing our health, of losing the desire to drink, of being so on fire in our missions and purposes, of also doing these beautiful, elegant, luxurious health challenges. I've learned so much on my fertility journey. I can't wait to bring this back to you, and I can't wait to be in close proximity with you and invite you into the club. We're also going to have hands-on coaching, personalized coaches. My favorite guest experts are coming in. You guys, it's too good for me to share all in just one snippet on this YouTube thing. I need you to go check it out. I need you to go to our page and go check out the Euphoric the Club, the experience. It is going to rock your world, and I can't wait to welcome you in and start building this incredible community of successful women who don't drink and the women who want to be them. Because the more and more I do research, the more and more I learn on my personal journey and just meet so many other successful people, alcohol is truly the smallest little footnote in their lives. And I feel like there's just such a hunger in our world to be in community with people who don't put this high value, that don't want to always go out on a Friday night, that want to really have these connections with people who are making a meaningful difference in the world, who feel like that we can bond even over like board games and dancing and just all the things that come up for us as you go on an alcohol-free journey, and just feel so supported with that. We're also going to drip some of my signature programs into the club. So you are going to be able to work through what's called Become Euphoric. This is my signature program to completely lose the subconscious desire to drink in the first place and heal the root cause of why we gravitate to alcohol in the first place and unearth what your deeper dreams are. You're also going to be able to go through Become Emboldened, which is my signature program for newly alcohol-free souls to unleash their deepest purpose and to find so much meaning and fulfillment in the world and manifest their biggest dream. We have had women launch podcasts, we have had women start businesses, become coaches, like do nonprofit centers, like all this incredible stuff, become yoga teachers through the power of this program. And Become Euphoric is usually about $1,000, $997, and Become Emboldened is $1,497, and they're yours for just $59 when you join the club. So you're gonna get access to them, and you can let us know which one you want to start with, but we'll start you with Become Euphoric if you don't let us know otherwise. I'm just so excited to take some of these the work I've done with clients, the magic in the rooms that we've been doing for so many years, and bring it at such an accessible level and be able to have these incredible challenges that we go through together for optimizing your health and unleashing your purpose, and just really build such a rock solid community that you don't feel a sense of lack of belonging because you're not fitting in on drinking of some wine with moms or some drinks with friends on the weekend. Like, you have a true source of belonging and so much cross-pollination. And when you join the club too, you're also going to get the first dibs on becoming one of our guest experts. So if you want to share your work with the world and you want to be able to lead us through an experience, joining the club is one of the best ways you can do so. All right. Questions, go to my DMs. Feel free to ping me. I'd love to talk to you. And I can't wait to see you in Euphoric the Club. let's get into the episode today. So I don't think I've ever had an episode about this topic before, but it's something that's so near and dear to my heart because I'm going to tell you how to sleep like a freaking baby. And sleep is something that's been pretty important to me, but as I've gone alcohol free, it just got so much better. But then what happened is as I got on my alcohol free journey and then I went on my fertility journey is that it got even more optimized and I've learned even so much about how to make sleep better. So I can't wait to unpack all of my best tips for you on how to sleep like a freaking baby. And, let's just start. If you're new to my podcast, this is going to be a big one. If you've been around, this is going to be a no-brainer. But alcohol, we need to know, not enough people know this. Alcohol is one of the worst disruptors to sleep. And so first and foremost, if you want to improve your sleep, and sleep is one of the most important levers that we have to actually improve our health, our cellular health, our metabolic health, sleep is so important, you guys. This is where I would start because it's not sometimes as hard as starting with an exercise plan or a diet or something like that. Sleep is something that we can make these micro changes around and actually start seeing the effects without as much effort involved, which I think is what's so cool about optimizing your sleep and learning how to sleep like a baby. So alcohol, let's just go over it, right? Alcohol is one of the worst disruptors to sleep. So first of all, this is so scary, but I was reading such a good book on sleep, and I'm going to forget the name of the author right now, but he's one of the foremost, neuroscientists, researchers on sleep. And what he revealed in the ways that they've been able to track people and understand what alcohol does to sleep is that when you fall asleep after drinking, you're not actually asleep. And I was like, what? This is crazy. What is actually going on? I'm not talking about just passing out or something like that. Even after drinking 2 glasses or 3 glasses, when you fall asleep after drinking alcohol, your brain is not actually in a sleep state. What state is it in? It's in a coma state. What? Why aren't alcohol labels saying this kind of stuff to us? But it is crazy when we think that alcohol is helping us sleep. And unfortunately, about, I believe, 20% of Americans use alcohol to fall asleep. It's not. It's putting our brain into a coma state, and it's not getting any of the restorative properties of sleep that we actually need. So back when I was a drinker, yeah, sometimes it would be easy to fall asleep after drinking, but then you wake up a lot, right? And so that's what happens is that first half of the night, you're in that kind of coma state, and this is where you are in the non-REM sleep state. And then in the second half of the night, what happens is that alcohol disturbs your ability to get any REM sleep. And REM sleep is the sleep where your brain is processing a lot of your memories and your emotions, and that's when you dream. So that's when your eyelids are fluttering and stuff like that. We usually have around 5 to 6 REM cycles a night, and a whole sleep cycle is usually around 90 minutes, and then your REM sleep cycles in there, and you have more REM sleep cycles in the second half of the night. But what alcohol does, and they found that even one glass, one drink will do this, will reduce alcohol sleep cycles from their normal 5 to 6 a night down to only 1 or 2 a night. So this is what happened to me is I was going to bed, when I stopped drinking, I was really health conscious. So getting a full night of sleep, I wasn't 22 anymore where I wanted to just party all night or something like that. Getting 8 hours of sleep was so important to me, and I always knew it was going to be rough when I drank, even if I just had 1 or 2. And so I had the comfy pillows, and I had the mask, and I was really protective of my sleep, you guys, when I was still drinking. And I was I need to get the 8 hours, and I know sometimes I would sleep even more on days when I felt like I needed to make up from the sleep that I lost from drinking. And so I almost always clocked in 8 hours. It's not like I stayed up super late. I wasn't getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I was getting the 8 hours, but I still woke up feeling so exhausted. Why? Because my brain wasn't actually getting the REM sleep that it needed. It was completely bypassing that, lowering those sleep cycles. And it's like you're asleep, but you're not getting the nourishing sleep that your brain needs. So it's so important to recognize that. Alcohol is one of the biggest detractors to sleep. The other thing that's really a big deal around what alcohol is doing to our brain in the matters of sleep is that when we drink, our body has this homeostasis response. And so because alcohol is a depressant, our body is naturally producing stress hormones in response to alcohol. And so we naturally release cortisol and adrenaline in response to alcohol, right? And so what happens is a lot of times you could minutely feel this when you just have a drink and then you don't drink again after that. You just have the 1 drink. You might feel this 40 minutes after that first drink. You kind of feel a little low, a little wired, a little weird, a little uncomfortable. That's usually why people reach for another drink, right? But what almost always happens is people do have another drink, and so they're pushing that cortisol response until later and later and later. And so especially if you have a few drinks that night, like 2, 3, whatever, you will push that cortisol response to 3 a.m. in the morning, because the depressant side of nature, alcohol side of nature is still on. And so it's kind of suppressing that feeling of the cortisol. And then all of a sudden the depressive nature of the alcohol wears off. You're out of the coma state and the cortisol just surges. The adrenaline surges. Hence why most people who drink even just a few drinks wake up at 3 a.m., right? I would wake up every single night in the middle of the night if I drank alcohol. And oftentimes it was really hard to fall back asleep, and my sleep would be really fragmented, and I'd be super tired, but I just couldn't get sleep. Or sometimes you would wake up almost so frantic, and it's almost like the shame just hit you, the guilt just hits you, you're like, oh, I'm here again. And it's almost like everything that's wrong in your life is apparent at that moment. And another reason that is because alcohol also releases dynorphin, and dynorphin is like the depression molecule. It makes you feel like shit. It makes you feel like everything is wrong. It actually makes more feelings of shame in the body. And it's just literally the induction of drinking alcohol produces that molecule in the body. So it's not like it's not that you're depressed. It's not that you are feeling all those things. It's just the chemical like cocktail that alcohol brings to the body. So obviously everything's wrong at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? And then in addition to that, you also can wake up the next day with all this anxiety the next day and just feeling just out of it, not your best, like you're on the wrong side of the bed and that kind of stuff. So we have the REM sleep, depletion. We have all of that cortisol that's surging in your body at 3, 4 a.m. in the night and all this fragmented sleep. We have the coma state, which is not the state you want to be into in order to get restorative sleep. And on top of that, because alcohol is such a toxin, it is literally poison for the body. And so your body's like, okay, well, we need to get rid of this. We have to detox this. Your body and your cells are working overtime to detox the alcohol when you should be getting that restorative deep sleep and not working so hard. Now they're working so hard to be able to do that and to try to clean the liver out. And the liver's using, going on just full-time moment right now to be able to do that. And it's not giving you a chance to actually rest. So I think this is common knowledge more so now, but I didn't know any of this when I was drinking, right? And it wasn't until I went alcohol free. It can be an adjustment period. Sometimes the circadian rhythm still has to rebalance, and there's these other tips I'm going to go into that can really, really help with this. But sometimes it can be like a 2 to 4 week adjustment before you're really seeing that deep sleep come back to you. But like hands down, my sleep got so much better when I removed alcohol. I was sleeping like a baby, and to be very honest with you, I never wake up in the middle of the night ever anymore. Unless there's like a noise or something that like actually wakes you up, or the dog starts doing something that actually abruptly wakes me up. But other than that, I don't just wake up by myself usually, like very rarely if that ever happens. That used to happen all the time as a drinker. Either that cortisol was waking me up, and then I usually had to go to the bathroom, so it was this whole thing that like woke me up. That never happens. I never go to the bathroom in the middle of the night anymore. Like I can hold it all day now, or all night. You know what I mean? It's just so different. So that would be obviously the number one tip that I want to leave with you guys on how to sleep like a baby. But now let's get more advanced. If you've already removed the alcohol and you're like, how can I still optimize my sleep? How can I get better at sleep? I'm going to share with you some things that are kind of obvious. Maybe you've heard them before, but just because something's obvious, just because something's common sense, doesn't mean it's common practice. So I'm going to tell you how I've been able to implement it into my life, and hopefully we can kind of, continue trying to do these kind of more obvious things. But then I'm going to share with you some things I never heard about at all in order to optimize my sleep, especially on my fertility journey, because they've been such a game changer, and I don't think they're really talked about very often in like the public discourse about sleep. So I can't wait to leave these tips with you. And just so you know, this is what we're going to do in the club. Like, this is going to be one of our challenges where we all just optimize our circadian balance and rhythms, and we all get this deep, juicy sleep like 1 month. And we'll do another challenge another month on lymphatic drainage, and another challenge another month on making, life super juicy. Like, this is the fun that we get to have in the club together. And it's going to be like really elegantly layered on so that wherever you are on your journey, you are doing the deep work, and then you have this like incredibly fun, elegant challenge to do as well. It's just going to feel so luxurious for your nervous system. Okay, so let's start with tracking, because it's hard sometimes to know how good or bad your sleep is if you're not tracking it. So I'm going to start with that and how that's changed on my journey. So obviously you can ascertain how much you're sleeping by knowing what time you went to bed and knowing what time you woke up. So obviously that's a good start to just start tracking that. Like, did I get 7 hours of sleep? Did I get 8 hours of sleep? Did I get 6 hours of sleep? All that kind of stuff. but I'm really a fan of actually tracking it through the devices that we have, the wearable devices that we now have. And I've had my Oura Ring since the end of 2023, I believe, or beginning, probably 2023 sometime. No, probably beginning of 2023. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've had my Oura Ring now for a few years, and I love it. I'm obsessed. The Apple iWatch thing probably does it. There's a few other wearables that do it. The Oura is usually listed as one of the best trackers for your sleep. But what I love about it is that even if I think I get 8 hours of sleep because I went to bed at a certain time and I woke up at a certain time, the Oura will tell you, nope, you actually got 7.5 hours because you were either not sleeping for the first 30 minutes or you woke up a little in the middle of the night. And it's those imperceptible wake ups, like you don't know you woke up, you know what I mean? But maybe you started moving your body or something like that. Maybe you woke up a little before your alarm clock. So it gets you the real data of how long you actually slept, which is so, I think, critical to know. And then it gives you the data on how much REM sleep and how much deep sleep that you're getting. It also gets you your HRV, so that's your heart rate variability, which is important. The lowest heart rate that you have in your sleep, so the lower your heart gets to rest during a sleep means that's how restorative and rejuvenative your sleep can be. Obviously the Oura Ring does so much, but I think just for the sleep and the sake of that, it's been really nice to track because, to sleep more like a baby, to really optimize your sleep. For example, for me, I'm really good at getting REM sleep. So REM sleep is when you're processing the emotions of the day, the memories. That's when you're dreaming and stuff like that. But then deep sleep is the time when more of your body is getting restored. So more of your cells and stuff like that. And you're not thinking. It's much deeper sleep than that. And that's the one that I need to watch out for. That's the one that I need to optimize because sometimes mine isn't quite enough. And I actually had a practitioner tell me once that because I'm someone who thinks a lot and I create a lot, I get a lot of that REM sleep because that's just my mode of operating in my mind. But that full turning off, shutting down, you know what I mean? Might be harder for me because that's just not the way I run during my daily life. I have a lot going on. I have a lot of things on my mind and stuff like that. So it's been super interesting to learn how to use the evidence I'm getting from tracking and use that into making changes in my life. And what's really cool when you actually track your sleep is that little things you can start to pick up on what's moving the needle or not. It's not as of a big of a weight gap. Say if you're trying to lose weight or something, just for example, sometimes you don't know if it's working until you do it for much longer, for a few weeks or a month or two, or just any kind of goal where you have to really put in the work first and then you start to see the evidence of whether or not it's working. I feel with the sleep, it's faster than that. Maybe not just one night, obviously, but you could just be doing something for a week and already notice the differences in your sleep, which I think is so cool. And then when you get the evidence of it from your wearable device, it just feels amazing to know you're on the right track. Or vice versa, when you get the evidence of something definitely not working and distracting and being a really bad idea for you, you have more evidence and more just affirmation that oh yeah, I really should steer clear of that. So I definitely recommend the tracking device. Okay, this is going to be one of those obvious ones, but you know how they say we're not supposed to be using the screens before bed. I think this is one of those things that everybody knows. It's common sense, but it's not common practice. And so this is obviously a hard one, right? We have our TV screens, we have our laptops, we have our phones, and it can be really, really hard to actually have a firm boundary around not being on the screen itself. And so if you don't know, just why it's waking us up is basically the sun has what's called blue light, and that blue light in the morning, in the early afternoon, is the strongest, and it actually tells the human to get up and go enjoy the day and all that kind of stuff. And then there's more of the red light that happens at sunset and later on. And so our devices are all based on that blue light. So every time we look in our screen, it's almost looking into the face of the sun, and it's telling our brain, hey, you need to get up. It's daytime. It's time to go move and be active, right? And I'm not perfect at this, but I can definitely see the difference on a sleep night if I was using my phone before or not, And so what can we do? So first of all, we can go super aesthetic with this. We can be very strict and just say, I'm not going to be on any device for 2 hours before bed, right? And just make a solid rule. And, I'm going to talk about decompressing soon anyway. So we could just start our decompressing routine and just make it a really solid, nope, we don't. I charge my phone outside of my bedroom. I stop watching TV 2 hours before bed. I don't get on my laptop, all that stuff. And that's a really great practice to have, obviously, and maybe on some nights that's going to be very, very possible. However, what happens when it's not? What happens when you do need to be on your phone, or you need to like do a little bit of extra work that night, or whatever it is? I would definitely try to find myself like questioning if I'm doing a habit every day and it's not something that's very productive and it's not something I have to do. So for example, like working a little bit at night might be something you have to do, but scrolling on social media might not. And so maybe you find another time to scroll social media, like in the early afternoon, but then you really feel that need of like, it's kind of like your mind's wandering. Like maybe you read a magazine instead. So instead of like your mind's wandering, so you want to just go on social media, you actually get a magazine, and it's kind of the same thing. Like you're just looking at new things, like, oh, here's a new article, and here's a new picture, and here's like a new thing, but it's not as stimulating with the blue light as your phone might be. So that would be a really good way to kind of trade those practices. But what do you do when you do have to be on your phone or you do have to be on your computer? There are two things that I found that can be really, really helpful. So you probably heard of the blue light blocking glasses, and these are the things that you wear that actually color the lens to make it so the blue light doesn't come into our eyes. And this would be definitely something I would do for sure to wear, and I have my own pair, and you want to make sure that they're like a pair that works, but obviously the idea is that the glasses prevent it from the light to reach your pupils and stuff like that. So that's one way to, go around it if you're not able to set a really firm boundary every single night or every single day. The other thing that I found is really, really helpful is that there's actually a feature on your phone where you can turn your whole entire screen red. And so instead of seeing any colors whatsoever, the whole screen is this shade of red. And I actually learned this from a health practitioner. So this was like really like, it's cool that I learned it. I had no idea for a long time. So if you do have to be on your phone, like in the 2 hours before bed, you're at least looking at a red screen instead of the bright blue screen, the blue light that's happening. So that's like these little tweaks and fixes that you can do even if you're on those things. But what I really recommend as my next tip is having a decompression period for bed. So, our mind gets so used to any one of our habits. And one of the reasons that alcohol becomes very alluring is that our brain starts associating alcohol with relaxation or alcohol with, excitement. And it's like there's this end result that we want, and alcohol is the thing that we do that therefore feels like we get this end result. But it's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily alcohol that's giving us that. There have been studies where people, felt more relaxed just because they ordered a drink, not because they actually drank the drink itself. And so what happens is that you can place in your life any kind of ritual that denotes a certain feeling, right? And you can actually bring your brain into that state of that feeling by doing that ritual over and over again. So this could be really small. Like maybe you just smell some lavender before bed, and every time you smell lavender, you associate it with getting sleepy and going to bed. I go full out with this though. So I have a full-on decompression ritual that I do almost every night if I have the time and I'm around my house. If I'm traveling or something's up, maybe like things will be different, or if I have some work deadline I'm working on, obviously there's the exceptions to this. But in general, if nothing's really going on, this is what I do every night. And my decompression period means that I go upstairs. So me and my husband usually eat dinner together, and then we might go on a walk. We might watch a TV show together. And at a certain period of time, I decide to go upstairs, usually maybe around 8:30 or so. And what I do is I take a bath. And to me, a bath is just an instant signal to my brain that it's time to relax and it's time to get very sleepy. And what I'll do is I'll, usually use some minerals in the bath and some salts and stuff like that. I will have like a book to read or something like that. And sometimes it's a quick bath, and I really actually like to take a bath because if I'm wearing makeup that day, which is most days, I don't like washing my face in the sink. Like I hate getting my kind of the hairline wet. I hate like the drips that you have down your elbows. So I would actually much rather wash my face in the bath itself. So most of the time I just have to do this, and it's just so easy, and it'll be like a quick bath, maybe just like a 20-minute bath, 15-minute bath. And sometimes it's like an hour, like I'm just still in there reading a magazine, So to me, this just signals decompression. Some other things that I've tried but aren't necessarily super as regular as is like stretching before bed, for example, doing like hypnosis before bed, doing meditations before bed. I like to do my skincare before bed, So like all of these things can also denote this decompression period. So like really taking care of yourself. And then I obviously always do like my entire, teeth care before bed. So that's, the brushing and the flossing and the water pick and the tongue scraping. and, you know, then whatever I'm putting on my face for, you know, moisturizing and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just the like sitting in the bath, it's like the whole ritual of like, okay, we're getting ready for bed, we're priming ourselves to get sleepy and stuff like that. And I think, again, like if I was to stay downstairs up until 10, I wouldn't get as sleepy. And especially those nights where, you know, you're just watching one of those Netflix shows and you're just like, let's just watch one more, you know, and I do that and I stay down there until 10, I just don't get as sleepy. And obviously there's the blue light that's involved, and I didn't get to do my decompression ritual. So I think it's really important to have one. And if a bath is too long or not something you're into, you know, there's other ways to signal that it's time to go to bed, whether it's like doing your hygiene care and stuff like that, maybe reading a little bit. And that is actually my next tip. So I love to read. I've always loved to read. And one of the things that reading will do at night is make you sleepy. So I have this joke that I've told people before, like, if you can't fall asleep, try reading 100 pages of a book, right? You'll never read 100 pages before you fall asleep at night. You know what I mean? And so, especially if you're having trouble sleeping or your mind's wandering a little bit and, you know, you're just kind of too awake, reading, I think, is one of the most relaxing things. I saw a study once that reading's even more relaxing than something like meditation, maybe, or I might get this wrong, but it was like more relaxing than other things that we think are relaxing, because our brain gets to kind of escape into this other world. And it might depend on what you're reading itself. So maybe something that you really want to pay attention to and that you're taking a lot of notes on isn't the best kind of reading material. Maybe it's more fiction or more spiritual or more just like easygoing. And I definitely read books, obviously, and if I'm reading my Kindle or on my phone, I'll put on the red light feature and I'll turn off the blue light, but I'd rather actually read a physical book because of the reasons I just listed. So this one is a big one for me. I don't think, it's not that I can't sleep without reading necessarily, but I feel like incomplete. Like I need to finish off the night with a little bit of reading, even if it's just 5 minutes. And I'd much rather read for 5 to 10 minutes than be on my phone for 5 to 10 minutes before I go to bed. And I know it. And every time I do it one way, it's like it shows up in my sleep score. And it definitely is so much better when I do it the other way, when I read before bed. And I've also really gotten into magazines. I really love travel magazines like Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast. And those are so fun sometimes when I don't feel like I want to get into the thick of like a story or the thick of a book, or it's maybe a little too mentally exhausting to read what I was reading. Just like a nice little magazine, like a nice little article about like traveling, for me, it just feels so luxurious. So that one is a big one as well. Okay, this is one that again may seem obvious, but common sense does not equal common practice: caffeine. So we drink a lot more caffeine, I think, than we think. Because it's not just in the coffee or a tea, it can be also in a soda, it can be in a chocolate, it can be in a lot of other mediums. And I know a lot of people who have, you know, 1, 2, or 3 cups of coffee a day. And, you know, the shelf life of caffeine, I've heard, is anywhere between, or the half-life is anywhere between 6 to even 12 hours. So when you have caffeine in the morning at like 11 a.m., it's still potentially circulating in your body when you're trying to sleep. And so for this one, the rule that I made for myself for a long time was to only have 1 cup a day, never anymore. And that really, really worked out for me, even if it was like yummy, and I never had, even after that, like a tea. So it's not like I would have a cup of coffee in the morning and then say no more coffee, but now I can drink a cup of tea. No, this means decaf or herbal teas only for the rest of the day today too. So for a long time, I had a rule: only 1 caffeinated beverage a day, and in the early morning or in the morning, right? After a certain time, no. And I honestly actually never drink caffeine. For a long time, I never drank caffeine when I was flying because I wanted to be able to sleep more easily on a plane. Even a daytime plane, I'd rather take a little nap if I could than be kind of awake. And just recognizing that even those of us who don't think we're as sensitive to caffeine, it's because our body got really used to caffeine over time. So basically, if you were able to wean off and wean back, your body would become more sensitive again to caffeine, and less would do more for you anyway. It's kind of like the same with alcohol. Like if you imagine someone who drinks every day and they never get hungover, and they're, you know, they can drink 3 drinks every day and never get hungover. It's not that their body isn't sensitive to the alcohol anymore and the alcohol isn't doing damage. It's almost as if you were knocking your hand against a wall over and over and over again. Eventually it's going to callous up. You're just not going to feel it anymore, and it's going to become your normal, right? So I think it's the same thing with caffeine, is that we have to like lower our dosage in order to actually get that sensitivity back sometimes. And then interesting enough is that, you know, in some fertility circles, they say that, you know, for the caffeine can affect fertility. And most people said 1 cup a day is fine. But I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to risk it anymore. I'm going to just cut caffeine out completely. So I have ever since the beginning of this year of January. And I don't miss it at all. Like, I still have a warm beverage every single morning. I'll either have a decaf coffee, or I will have a decaf tea, or I will have even an herbal tea that is kind of still like full bodied. Like, they make some really good ones with like a coconut and chicory and stuff like that. So I still have a warm beverage. And at the end of the day, I feel like that's the thing I really crave. It's not the caffeine itself ever. It was the warm beverage that makes you feel like solid, like not like an herbal tea, like a chamomile, because it's not like full bodied enough, like something full bodied in the morning. And that is good. And that has been amazing. I definitely didn't notice a difference in the sense of like the missing of the caffeine, but I did notice my sleep definitely improving. And let me tell you, one time when I was traveling, I did decide to have a normal cup of coffee, and I had half a cup, and I had half a cup mixed with like milk. And I couldn't fall asleep that night until 2 a.m. And I was so upset with myself because I was like, oh my God, I didn't know I got this sensitive to caffeine. And that's just like goes to show, if you have like a purely kind of innocent body, or if you were like a young child and you introduce something like caffeine to their body, yeah, it does make a huge difference. And the only time, or the only reason why sometimes we don't notice a difference when we have caffeine or not is because our body got so desensitized it because it was being thrown so much of this caffeine at it. So obviously that's why children aren't allowed to drink coffee, because it is actually too intense for their bodies, right? So that's just kind of interesting. If you love caffeine and you have no trouble sleeping, that's fine. But I would at least limit it to the 1 cup a day and then switch to herbal or decaf or water, obviously. But if you're having trouble sleeping, just try it. Like, what's it to hurt? You know what I mean? And you can see if that's affecting it as you're tracking your data with your wearable, or with, you know, the quality of just how you feel and stuff like that. Okay. Another big one that I've noticed is that if I eat too late, I will not sleep as well. And sometimes I will actually even feel a little hungover because I either ate too late or I ate something that wasn't something I should have eaten so late. So I for sure will see this in my Oura ring. If I eat something like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., something kind of heavier, the next day my Oura is like, did you eat too much last night? It seems like your body had a hard time like doing this and that. And I'm like, how do they know? You know what I mean? It's like, because your body has to digest now, and it's all this heaviness and stuff that it has to work through. So this is one that's, I think, pretty important, is like time your meals so that you're not eating, you know, right before bed, and that you're eating your big meal much like many hours earlier and stuff like that. And then also what we eat. So sometimes if I will have a, let's say it's a dessert day, right? And I'm having like a homemade piece of cake. If I eat it at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., it's fine. But if I ate it at like 9:30 or 10, I might actually feel that sugar, that like detoxing of the sugar throughout the night, and then wake up a little off edge. But then if I eat something that's really crappy, like something with high fructose corn syrup, or, you know, so like the real pure junk kind of like processed foods, then it feels like for sure a hangover, and especially if I time it too close to bedtime. So that's another reason to just cut that stuff out, or to, you know, eat it earlier or something like that. And I think just food in general, if you are experimenting with a more whole foods based way of eating less processed foods, of eating more cruciferous vegetables or more protein or something like that, you're also going to see the difference in your sleep scores, which I think is just, again, exciting that you can start to see these micro changes that you make in the sleep well before you might see it in other kind of areas in your life. So that one I think is important. Okay, here is a fun one that I didn't know anything about before. So I was telling you about the blue light that comes in that kind of affect our sleep. And so I also, what's really important to recognize is that, you know, hunter-gatherers, like when the light went out, when the sun went down, they went to bed, you know what I mean? Like maybe they would sit around a fire a little bit, but for the most part, the sun going down meant it's time to unwind and go to sleep, right? And so it's only in a modern society that we have electricity and that we stay awake way beyond after the sun rising. You know, maybe not as bad in the summer, but for sure in the winter, we're all staying awake like hours and hours after the sunrise. And that's why historically, you know, our bodies actually crave more sleep in the winter because it's darker longer. So we want to sleep when it's dark. And because the sun goes down at 6 p.m. in the winter, right? Like that's actually when your body could be craving sleep. So what's interesting about this is that I don't know that anyone's actually going to follow this to a T, that they only sleep when the sun sets and when the, you know, sun rises when they wake up. Like that's a little hard to do in modern society. But what I have found through my fertility journey and just working with different practitioners is the light that we're receiving, not just from blue light from our screens, but the light we're receiving can also kind of trick us into thinking it's a different time than it really is. So basically what I've learned is that you want your light at night. So once it passed, sunset, once it's like 7, 8, 9 p.m., depending on, again, the season and where you are in the world, you want to be using like red and orange and amber lights. So this is not the time to have super bright white fluorescent lights on. This is when you want to maybe even change your bulbs, and they make some on Amazon. I don't have like a brand recommendation or anything, but just look for something that's like amber light, red light, and it's, it meets that desire and need and quality, and replace some of the bulbs with that. So we've done that in my bedroom, which is amazing. It's such a sanctuary now. Like it just feels so jarring. We have 2 lights in my bathroom. One's really dim and one's a lot brighter. And sometimes my husband will come in at like 10:45, and I've been decompressing for about an hour and a half. I have my orange light on to read. Like it's such a vibe. And then he'll turn on the bright light in the bathroom, and I'm like, turn that off. Like it always, I'm still awake. It's not like he woke me up, but it's just I got so used to decompressing with this different light that it wasn't affecting me to think that I'm awake. So we kind of have this little rule around that we don't use those lights. And what else you can do in addition to changing bulbs or the color of the light is that if we place lamps that are lower to us, it also looks like the sunset to our eyes and to our brains. Instead of when the light's straight overhead, it looks more like the actual sun coming up, right? So if you do need to use light at night, which most of us obviously do, see if you could have some more like side lamps going on instead of the big bright light that's coming from above. This one has been such a game changer. It makes me feel so relaxed, so luxurious. And it's just a vibe. Like it's that hygge or hygge feeling like that the Danes have. Like it's just kind of more comforting, I think, as well. So that one's been a good one. Okay, in addition to that, morning sun. So, if we're not getting enough sun in the morning, basically what happens is our brain doesn't ever know that it's time to fully turn on and to finally start moving and going and stuff like that. So getting morning sunlight is another big one that you can do, and it doesn't have to be long. You can just go outside for 5 minutes and just like look outside, stare out. You can go on a walk, you can walk your dog or something like that, but that's also really, really helpful to really just set the circadian rhythm right away. That way it's like time to wake up, and then as you go to sleep, your brain's gonna know it's time to sleep. So that's a big one too. Okay, so the last one I think I'm gonna talk about today out of all these tips that have been both common sense, but like this is how I make them common practice, and also the more kind of esoteric ones. This one's probably the most esoteric. I will say that I used to think this was so made up. I don't know, and that just like people with like the tinfoil hats, like the type of people would do this kind of stuff. So, but basically EMFs. So there, is then a concept that the wireless world that we live in, the 5G, the wireless from our computer, that, our body is able to perceive these waves, and that it is disrupting us, and it is potentially preventing, good sleep. And so you could go super far with this, right? There's some people who are like, I'm going to live off grid, and I'm going to plug in only with the Ethernet and clean electricity. I mean, like you could go pretty crazy with this. However, what I've found just the easiest to pay attention to is at least my phone on airplane mode. And then what you could also do in addition to that is just turn Wi-Fi off at night and just see, right? Is it actually affecting me or not? It's going to be such a small perceptible difference. But if it does make a difference, like it could be worth exploring and just trying if you want to improve your sleep more. And especially on my fertility journey, I'm willing to try anything, right? That has some science-backed evidence to it. I'm willing to try almost anything at this point, right? So that's been another area that we've noticed. And so what I do is I have a ritual of it, like once it's like later, I will turn my phone on red and I will turn my phone on airplane mode too. And I just put it there away, and then like I get to read and I get to decompress and stuff like that. And if I have to check my phone for something, because you know how it is, you're like, it's 9:30 and you have to look up something for some reason, at least my phone is on the red screen at that point. So I hope these tips were helpful. These are the ways that I sleep like a freaking baby. I have really good, amazing quality sleep. I clock in really good sleep scores most of the time. If I'm traveling and I have to wake up or I have layovers or, I'm on a red eye, obviously that kind of gets thrown into the wrench of it. But for the most part, like optimizing my sleep is really important to me. And it's something that you improve upon with like small steps too. So like one day you might have a crappy sleep score and then you're gonna like do better the next day, and you can just make these changes. Like it's not about being perfect with them, but you know, I hope that there's something you could optimize here from your life. And we're definitely going to have a circadian rhythm and balance challenge in the club. So I would love to do this together, where we get to do this together, and you could just pick one or two of these items and start implementing them, and then we'll like challenge each other and see how it's going and how our sleep scores are doing and how we feel is most important as well. So I can't wait to see you in the club. I hope this was really helpful. And if you're someone who has been, you know, changing your relationship with alcohol to also improve your sleep, definitely be patient on that one, because it can take a few weeks to rebalance. But just know there's not a world, there's not a single universe, there's not a single place where alcohol helps your sleep. Okay, like that is the biggest myth, that is the biggest like oxymoron that exists in our culture. Alcohol is the worst thing that you could possibly have toward sleep. If you really want to have deep and restorative sleep, you got to exit out and see how you feel without it, because some people say that they love drinking and they love having a few glasses with dinner and stuff like that, but it's not worth as yummy of the sleep they get when they don't drink for longer periods of time. Like I would trade that for obviously any day. You guys know. So hope that was super helpful. Reach out if you're interested about the club. Sign up, become a founding member, become a pioneer member. We're going to be celebrating you. I can't wait to get started. It is going to be the most incredible experience on the internet. We're starting a revolution of successful women who don't drink and the women who want to be them. Who doesn't want to be in this room? So be sure to get your spot.